All right, I got the live stream message, so I should be live now. If you just joined me in the homeschool and cooking class, then hello again. Peace to you. If you are just joining me now for incorporating music into homeschooling, welcome. Karibu sana. Okay, I want to jump right into it. So, music, one of my first loves. I've been loving music since I can remember. It's like my earliest memory trying to sing and wanting to sing. When I started talking, I absolutely started singing. And luckily, I had my mom, my dad, my grandparents who cultivated that. They allowed me to sing as loud and big in as many places where people thought children shouldn't be singing that I wanted to. And they exposed me to a lot too. And looking back on it, even though I went through public school, um, there were a lot of homeschool lessons that happened in my home and then my grandparents' home and then my father's home. There was a lot that they intentionally poured into me and taught me that I'm grateful for. And that's part of why I am who I am today. I wouldn't change any of it. So, that being said, incorporating music into your homeschool lessons, of course, Black music for sure, it empowers our children, taking them through that musical journey, that historical lesson that you get automatically, depending on where you start that journey. It's empowering for our children. The vibrations that comes from traditional drumming from all over the continent. And I've heard drums be beat in several different ways. A lot of us, I'm not going to say a lot of us, I'm not going to make that statement. But I would say when I was growing up, the very few people that I knew who would actually come to the continent and either stay or, do some kind of studying or training for dance or drum, normally did so somewhere in West Africa or South Africa. But I never really heard people talk about coming to East Africa or anywhere like along this side where Uganda is, or Kenya, Tanzania. So having heard lots of West African cadences and being able to compare those to what I hear here and what I've heard come out of South Africa, we beat the drum in a lot of different ways. But the vibration behind it, the connectivity to nature and spirit, and what it does to you, at your core, is the same across the board for me. And so that kind of lesson, that in itself is a lesson. Just that comparison of how traditional instruments were played, their origin across the continent, the comparing and contrasting of them in relation to the people. How did they change post colonial era after certain areas were colonized? Did the execution of these certain cadences and sounds and feelings change at all? Like all of these, that you could spend a semester on that topic alone. On that topic alone, you could. And then looking at how those traditional sounds from the continent inspired other genres of music. Well, what are those other genres of music? Then we get into breaking those down. These are the genres of music in existence today. And this is how they were influenced by traditional music from the continent and other parts parts of the diaspora. Another homeschool lesson. And so in addition to that exploration, if you will, then you can get hands-on with it. Even if your child is not going to learn to play an instrument, they can hold one. They can look at it. They can learn how it works. They can learn what people do. They can go to a concert. They can sit in on a rehearsal. Sometimes you can ask permission for that. If you say, oh, we can't afford to go, to the symphony or the opera, contact the director and say, hey, can my homeschool class sit in on your rehearsal for your upcoming show? Can we sit in on your dress rehearsal? I've been a part of the rehearsals where these classes and groups come in just to sit in on the rehearsal. So it's doable. There's a lot that we can expose our children to. We just have to be resourceful, and we have to be willing to take other people outside of their box, because 9 times out of 10, these things and this access and this red tape is normally just somebody asking the right questions in the right way in the right places to break these things down and give our children access where they wouldn't otherwise have it. And so places like the symphony are included in that. Don't think you don't have access to that. And don't think that classical music is not ours, because it is. Very much so. Okay. Also, the intellectual effects of listening to classical music, hearing classical music, and playing it like for an unborn child, the way that the synapses in your brain are stimulated from all the different sounds and all the notes and the continuity of that, and how you're affected like on a cellular level. Going to the symphony is a good idea. I'm just going to say that. It is. So find your way there. Find your children's way there, and incorporate a lesson on the African history of classical music. Identify the African people, including, people like you. When I say African, I'm not just talking about people who were born born and raised on the continent of Africa. I'm talking about her children as well across the diaspora. So you. And out of that pool of people, how many of them are in classical music? How many of them have influenced classical music? That's a heavy lesson. It is. How many famous classical composers and pianists, people that we know, have been presented to us as Caucasian, when in reality they are Black? That's another lesson to explore. And I'm not going to give you all the answers in this talk. I'm inspiring you. I'm inspiring your lessons and incorporating these into your homeschool at home. But these are ideas, you can explore. Now we get into the more familiar parts of music, the math, right? Learning to read music and utilizing different parts of your mind simultaneously. So if we're learning to read music, say we're singing and not playing an instrument, we have to read the notes of the music, right, that are on the staff, the quarter notes, the half notes, the whole notes, the eighth notes, the 16th notes, and everything is happening in different places and notes are jumping around. And if you're singing with a group, then you might see everybody's notes. You have to pay attention to your part and your line in betwixt everyone else's, as well as the lyrics. So I'm not just reading this music, I have my second brain also reading these lyrics at the same time. That's a mental workout. then making sure you're executing these things properly, right? So now my third brain is working as well. I have to keep the tempo. I have to make sure I'm blending with my counterparts here, my colleagues. Same thing in band. You might not be reading words, but there are several parts of your brain working simultaneously when you are reading music, when you are performing music. And maybe your homeschooler might even be inspired to write some music or compose some music at some point. But it is definitely a mental workout executing music, reading music, learning how to read it, and then effectively executing that music that you are reading. So yeah, like I was saying before, math comes into play for sure. Adding, subtracting, dividing, fractions, all at once. Multiplying, all of that happens at once in music for sure. And then language, language arts, literary arts, poetry, because most of the time, music is a poem with a melody or a story, someone's storytelling, and then adding a melody to it. When you go to an opera, it's drama most of the time. It's like a play most of the time. And instead of saying these words like, oh, I know you didn't, they're singing everything. I know you didn't. Singing everything. And so reading that, we get into the homeschool lessons, we get into history there as well. That is something that your homeschooler can dive into. They can even explore writing their own opera and how that interaction could happen, writing their own poetry, responding to certain lessons, or helping to memorize things like sight words by writing music or raps. Hip hop, if that's what they're into, is doable and possible. And, it helps them to remember some things, to retain it. I might not be able to sit down and study for 3 hours and remember this concept, but if I take, 30 minutes to write 16 bars, I'm likely not going to forget those 16 bars anytime soon. Incorporating music into your homeschool lessons can help your scholar retain information for sure. And also, now for me, this is probably one of the bigger benefits, one of the more impactful, if you will, something that I've gone over and done experiments with our scholars at Whole Living Academy, but that's the vibration of the music. Lessons surrounding the vibration of the music. What does that mean? So we have discussed in depth the effect that negative words can have on our bodies. And so we've done an experiment, home experiments where, you put the 2 jars on your counter or desktop or somewhere central in the home. And one jar has purified water. It could just have water, but you could do water and rice, either or, but just water or water and rice. And then in the other one, you can have also just water and water and rice. So they're identical jars. And every day, jar A, let's call it, you say negative words to. We've also done a variation where we said positive words in a negative way. And you say that every day to jar A. And then to jar B, you say negative words to. You talk down on it, you say, a lot of things that just have a low vibration, if you will. And you do that every day to this jar. And you do that for, say, 2 weeks. So you have jar A that you're saying good things to, and jar B that you're saying bad things to. And we'll just keep it that simple. I don't want to argue the subjectivity of good and bad right now. But after 2 weeks, and this is an experiment we've done, and you can find, thousands and thousands of people having done this experiment as well online. Jar A is water. It's clear. In some cases, clearer than it was. The rice, if there's rice in it, is still, white rice in clear water. Whereas the exact same identical jar that had the same kind of rice, the same kind of water for the same amount of time in the same place, the only difference was negative words were being spoken to this jar. The water is dirty and murky. And if there was rice added, the rice is molded and spoiled and turned. It is dying. It's dead. Simply because of words. Even the water itself, the water droplets, if you put it under a microscope, you can see a shift in the molecular structure of the water itself. So then why is this important, and how does it correlate to music? Music has vibrations as well. All music. It has vibrations, and what do we have? Water. Our bodies are full of water. Even the blood in our bodies. We are full of matter that can be impacted by vibrations, sound vibrations, coming through the music we listen to. This is a wonderful experiment to do at home with your homeschooler and conversation starter. Because what if we played music to these separate jars? And what kind of music that we know of that may or may not be perpetuated in specific communities throughout America, what effect would that have on a jar of clear water? That kind of music. I'm not even going to get specific into saying what kind or whose music or what they say, because I know that you know what I'm talking about. What effect would that kind of music have on that jar of clear water and rice over 2 weeks? And if you're thinking about the same result that I'm thinking about, then what effect do you think it has on us and our people? I think much of the data is evident. We live it. We have lived it. And the opposite, right? People were up in arms about Andre 3000's flute album. We made that a topic in our class, a topic of discussion. It was in our debate class. Do you think that Andre 3000's last album that had no bars, only flutes over meditation music was beneficial to his fans or not beneficial to his fans. And he had to argue why it was beneficial or why it was not. That's incorporating music into homeschooling. Pretty much every class, you can find a way to bring some music in. You could even start class with music to set the tone. I have another good sister, Mama Kiera. If you are watching this, shout out to you. But she works in the public school system and works with public schools. But in her classroom, she plays music. It sets a certain tone and vibration for her scholars' learning space with positive results. Vibrations are so important. So, that is something to consider in your household or your learning space that you've created for your homeschooler. Let's do some work to meditation music today and see how we feel after. Let's just try. Or let's play this kind of song or that and see how it affects our workflow today or our movement through our lessons or reaching our goals or exercising. People play certain kinds of music when they exercise too because it brings about a certain vibration and energy. Yeah. You can also discuss the emotional impact of music, the emotional impact that music has on people in certain spaces, why certain kinds of music correlates with certain kinds of, I'm just going to say rituals for lack of a better word, but rituals and traditions that we've created in our communities over time and the songs that we've associated to those. So that's a lesson in emotional intelligence. That's a lesson in history. That's a lesson in sociology. Could be an experiment. So yeah, very much so. Music can be incorporated into that homeschool life and outline what some of those rituals and traditions are. What are some of the rituals and traditions that we've created as African people across the diaspora and on the continent that call for music and call for certain kinds of music at certain times? What are those traditions? What is the music and why? That's something to consider and think about. Writing, they could write about that. Give me 3 paragraphs. Write an opinion piece. Do a research paper on this. Incorporate it into music they like. Make it interesting to them. If you have a homeschooler whose attention it may be hard to grasp and keep, research them. Study what their interests are and make the lesson align with that. Because as long as you understand the concept and what we're teaching and our goals in learning, then we've won. We both won together. If music is a part of the step that will help us get to that level of understanding, then I'm going to take it upon myself to find out which music will have the best benefit in our learning space, the greatest benefit in our learning space for you, for the learner, for the homeschooler, right? So we have utilized music to explore culture, science, sound, vibration, also frequency, pitch, pitches and frequencies that'll break glass, sounds and sound machines used as weapons, because that's another frequency and vibration, and reality. Music being used to motivate, inspire, move people, and also weaponized against people. Exploring that, what it looks like, and the effects that it's had on our communities over time. Utilizing music to reduce stress. So studying that as the homeschooler, how music can and does reduce stress or have stress reducing properties and qualities, and in what spaces and arenas it does. And also utilizing it in your own learning space to reduce stress for your learner and for you. Because I am contacted by, or am in groups with, or see, or talk to homeschooling moms, homeschooling dads, homeschooling parents that are really stretched thin and feel really stressed. And a lot of the time, it's because they spend a lot of energy trying to align themselves, align their curriculum, align the learning space and their processes with the same enemy system they took their children out of. So that's like step 2. 1 is taking your children out of that, if that's the decision you make for you and your child. And then 2 is letting go of their rubric. You don't want to just create public school at home. You want to maximize your freedom and understand that lessons happen everywhere. Learning happens everywhere. It takes living, and it takes being intentional about highlighting what those lessons are, being vocal to your scholar about what that lesson is, and how we're going to make this moment and every moment a learning moment year round. We don't have to worry about schedules and breaks and all of that, because we're learning all the time. And so if that means waking up in the morning, or waking up not very early in the morning, if we don't have to do that, and getting ourselves together and ready to learn, and playing some meditation music in the whole house to get our day started, to set that vibration. Or I'm getting you, your own MP3 player. You can put your headphones in and set that tone for yourself internally. Take that ownership as the homeschooler, even as a child, and say, this is how I'm setting my space and my intention for the day. You can do that. These are things that often don't happen in public school. Why not utilize that freedom that you have at home or wherever you want to learn? Let's go to the park. Let's go somewhere else. When you're doing your art lessons at home or learning about art, what kind of music influenced some of the great artists that we know? You create your own art. Say you want to, design some Adinkra symbols. You study in Adinkra symbols. You want to design your own. We want to create, a patch quilt with Adinkra symbols we know and some Adinkra symbols we made, and we have created their meanings and everything that's going along with that. And maybe we want to write a song about that, or maybe we want to play some Babatunde Olatunji while we do this assignment to see how it can move us through this learning space at this time. Like, yes. Yes. That's a lesson I can get with. I could feel the space forming around me, incorporating music into that, listening to Sweet Honey on the Rock, and not just listening to it, but dissecting it. Why did they feel the need to write this song this way at this time? Why did they feel the need to put these words together? What do you think they meant? What did they want the person listening to this music to feel or learn or understand? And why? What do you think? Let's think critically about this. Lots of critical thinking lessons incorporated into music. Lots. Maybe you have more than one homeschooler. Maybe you have several children at home, like we do here. Something they can do together. Even for Kwanzaa, it's Kwanzaa time. Make a Kwanzaa song. Make a Kwanzaa rap. Make a Kwanzaa performance or dance or show. And let's do it at home. Let's have our own concert. Just make sure in the song, hey Salil, just make sure in the song you talk about each principle of Kwanzaa and what it means. That's the assignment. Write a Kwanzaa song. Make sure in that song you incorporate each principle of Kwanzaa and what it means. That's a homeschool assignment, and a fun one, and one that more than one child can participate in. Then when you go out and about, to your different Kwanzaa festivals and programs, well, now your homeschooler already has a song under their belt. If they want to get on stage and perform it, or maybe you want to take them to the studio and let them record it and let them have that sense of fulfillment and accomplishment. Let them listen to their own song back, right? All homeschool lessons and incorporating music. Now, talking about trade skills or skills they can take into the future to sustain themselves economically. Learning to play an instrument is an excellent way to do that, okay? Keyboards, piano, trumpet, saxophone, violin, viola, cello, bass, electric guitar, xylophone. Learn to play an instrument and learn to play the traditional equivalent of that instrument from the continent. You learn to play an instrument, that is a resource you'll always have. You'll always be able to hire yourself out, advertise yourself, say, hey, I'll play the piano, or people will call you, I need keys, or you can start a band, or that, but that's a way, learning to play that instrument, that's a way to make some income. Then on the tech side, studio engineer. People record music all the time. That's a source of income. That's a career. Studio engineer, learning to help people record sound. People aren't always recording music. Sometimes they're just recording voiceover. Recording them, creating music digitally, creating tracks for people, writing songs for people, composing music for people, becoming a music educator, becoming a vocal coach. Like, all of these are viable careers that can sustain a homeschooler into the foreseeable future, if it's something they're serious about or passionate about. But I do know in some arenas, sometimes parents kind of sway away from music as being a good option or a career option for the future for their child or homeschooler. And so I guess that last little piece was just my way of discouraging that kind of thought process and expanding your mind to more of what's possible. Do you like music, Salil?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
What do you like about it?
The sound.
The sound.
It just makes my stomach get bad.
It gives you butterflies in your stomach?
Yes.
Okay. You want to sing a song?
No.
No, he doesn't want to sing a song. But he talked about that vibration. He said he likes music because it gives him butterflies in his stomach. And it does for me too, depending on the song. I love lots of different kinds of music, and any kind of music that I'm not quite into, then my husband is into. So we have every base, almost every musical base covered in the house, except country music. But I know there's people out there who like country music, and they tell stories too. Lots of stories in country music. So I think that in this mini course we just did for Kwanzaa, Habari Ghani, I forgot to say that, Ujuma, cooperative economics. I want to inspire you to find a way to incorporate some music into your homeschool lesson. Find a way to incorporate some music in your homeschool lesson. Make it a science experiment. Talk about those vibrations. Set up your own jars in the house. Play meditation music or positive music to one jar and play some low vibrational music to the other jar and see what happens. Or just say those words and see what happens. The sound, vibration. I would love for you all to come back on this post or hit us up on our social media and let us know the results of that experiment for you or what research your homeschooler found that these vibrations, the effects that these vibrations have on water, on water's molecular structure, and in turn on our bodies. Talk about the emotional effects of music, incorporate that into your lessons. Performance arts. Find a show to go to. Find a show to go to. I'm sure there's some live performance you can go to near you, maybe a community theater or a school or somewhere you can go to enjoy some live music, some live instrumentation, something different. It doesn't always have to be what you're used to. If you see a different genre of music or dance, go ahead and explore that with your homeschooler and expose them to as much as possible. And if you have the means to travel, look up shows in other places and make it a complete immersive trip. Because you might have a means for that, you just haven't thought about it. you know Say we're going to go see this kind of show in Mexico City and learn about the culture there and hear some music there and hang out there and have just a full complete immersive lesson there. Or we're going to go over here to Berkeley University and sit in on some classes or see when their final performances are, or listen to somebody that's studying for a doctorate that has a show coming up. Like most universities with schools of music have concerts. See when they are near you. So, I hope that you have found some ways. Maybe there's some questions in the comment section, Mama Nikala. I don't know if you see any. I know we're just right about at time. So if you have questions, you can put them on our social media or in the comment section and we'll get them answered. I hope that you were inspired in some way. Lots of resources in the comment section that we have shared with you guys. Yeah, and sitting in on rehearsals and practices is a thing. So look into that. Even if you feel like, oh, it's the most, popular or inaccessible show, call and ask, email, and say, hey, I want to bring my homeschool class to sit in on your rehearsal. Or hey, I have a elementary school student who's interested in the trumpet. I'm going to bring them up to the high school, the local high school, and let them sit in the trumpet section. I'm going to go to a thrift store and buy them a used trumpet and get a brand new mouthpiece and, have it clean and let them sit in on rehearsals. Just let them sit in. That's something I do with my children. I find places that are doing what they're passionate about and just ask, hey, like, can they come twice a week? Can I bring them twice a week? And, whatever you're doing, I'll cover the cost of materials. Just let him or her get some hands on training too. The same is possible for music. I have a homeschooler, so they might not be here, um, uh, like enrolled or a part of this school or system. But if I have a middle schooler that's interested in choral music and singing, then I'm definitely going to take them to sit in on some rehearsals. Definitely. Probably at the local university. It's music majors, they do music every day. Every day. And normally campuses are open. Even for students who aren't enrolled, they just come and sit in on rehearsal. You can do the same with your homeschooler. They won't put you out, I promise. So other than that, I think that is it for this session. Enjoy the rest of your Ujama and visit us at wholelivingacademy.com. We're starting our spring semester in our 4th year. And I'm grateful for all of you, grateful for the platform, the opportunity to speak, grateful for Mama Nikala. And enjoy music with your homeschooler.